Greetings and salutations, everybody. It's time for another pen review. We've got a bit of a mystery pen here today. This is a pen I didn't buy from a store. I got it from an eBay auction. So it is a completely unmarked pen in terms of maker. So I have marked it in the description as an R. Pirre, and I'll go over why I think that later. But for now, let's look at the outside of this pen here. This is an all metal pen, or at least as far as the cap and the barrel goes, these are all metal. So the cap is got a black lacquer. You can see right there, where I have actually managed to scratch off a bit of the lacquer. So it looks like there's some brass underneath that or something. But we've got a metal cap with black lacquer. We've got this clip that's got one of the ball type clips. It doesn't move very much, but that ball does serve to actually, roll it in and out of a pocket or whatever. So it's certainly a functional clip. And we got these two sort of chrome bands going on. All right, and that matches the back of the pen. Also, black lacquer with these two metal bands in it as well. In between is this sort of wild purple swirly acrylic. That is simply gorgeous, which is what caught my eye on that auction. Unlike a lot of other acrylics that you see, the white swirls actually demarcate the two different colors of purple. While a lot of times you just see a white swirly pattern on top of a background, but here the swirls are actually distinguishing the sort of brighter purple from the darker purple. And they're both still rather pearlescent, as you can see them sort of gleaming there. It's simply just gorgeous. It's kind of hard to tell with just a pen on a background there, but this is a fairly short pen. If I hold it like so, perhaps you can see. And that is just barely long enough to write with, especially because the cap does not post. If we unscrew this guy, we can try as much as you like, but that's just going to fall right off. There's no sticking that cap on the back. While we've got the cap off, let me screw it back off here. Show you the nib. The nib, you probably can't read it, but you can tell just by looking at it, that's going to say Iridium Point, Germany on the nib. It turns out to be an okay nib. That was actually one of the things when I was looking at, and of course the standard black plastic feed. That was one of the things when I was looking at the auction. I knew that even if the nib turned out to be pretty horrible, if it was an Iridium Point Germany nib, it was probably going to be a standard size and therefore replaceable. And it is a standard number 6 nib that you can just yank right out of there if necessary. But it's been a pretty good writer, so I haven't had to worry about it too much. Now, the only thing that came with this pen that was marked with a maker's name was the converter. So let me unscrew this guy. There we go. This is you probably can't read that on the slide there. This is an R. Pirre. You can probably see that R maybe. This is an R. Pirre sort of slide converter. As I said, the only thing with a maker's name that I've got that came with the pen. As you can maybe tell, it's most of the way down. It's not a very smooth slide. I was trying to prime the pen a couple days ago, and that's how far I moved when I tried to prime it eventually. So, fortunately, the ink level was low enough I didn't squirt ink everywhere. Now, this converter is not necessarily a huge difference compared to a standard converter. So there's a standard converter. Stay. It wants to roll right off of there. Let me put it on this side. That's the standard converter. Let me carefully take this out. I mean, this converter right here is a Conklin one, but it's the same size as every other sort of piston converter that I've seen. And you can see it's not terribly longer than the slide converter that was in there. It's only about 2 millimeters longer if my ruler skills are um, up to snuff. But if I try to get this in the pen, it certainly fits on that side of the pen. But when I try to put the barrel on, I can only get it to there. And as you can see, I've got, from there to there still to go. So I don't know whether it's the diameter of the knob at the top, or the actual extra length, but I've not found any other converter that actually fits this pen. I haven't gone looking for other slide converters to see. I don't happen to have any around. But at the moment, this is the only converter that I can fit in this pen. This pen will take international short cartridges, of course. I don't think a long one will fit, because it's just barely that, that's longer than or shorter, I should say. I think this is shorter than a Waterman long, for instance. So international short cartridges work. This particular converter works, but I've not been able to find anything else that works. Alright, we'll squiggle this back in. Hopefully I've got enough ink left to do the writing sample. Looks like I should. But let's look at how this nib works. I didn't have to smooth this nib or any sort of nonsense like that. So this is a unknown pen. We're tentatively calling it our Pirre, but who knows. The ink in here is the Private Reserve Tanzanite, which is rapidly becoming my favorite purple. I originally had, when I first got this pen, I tried to put that eventually doomed ebony purple into here. But with this nib, it just came out black, more or less, for about a day before it stopped coming out at all because it clogged everything internally. So, there you go. Some writing. I don't know how well you can hear. It's probably not being picked up by the microphone very well. It makes a bit of noise on the downstroke, so it doesn't really feel scratchy, but it's certainly, when you hear it, when you make a downstroke, you will hear it. It writes, I would say, medium, maybe a bit more than medium. The nib is unmarked, of course, other than just a reading point Germany. But it's a fairly wet writer. I mean, this is cheap paper, but even so, you still get some pretty good smudge. Tanzanite does help, I suppose, because that is a fairly free-flowing ink. In terms of line variation, you can squeeze some out, I would think. It doesn't feel like a very rigid nib. So you can hopefully see that's a little bit wider there, that one and that one. I should eventually learn how to make these little squiggles, so we push down a bit. Now this is again cheap paper, so it's feathering immediately, but and then two sort of line points. So you can see you can get a bit of line variation if you push, and you don't really have to push all that hard to get this much out. So that's that would be enough to sort of get started with, I would think. So that's the pen. It's certainly a very gorgeous pen. Let me entrance you again with the swirls. As I said, I've not been able to find any sort of twin for this pen, any sort of match for it. So if anybody has any information at all about it, I'd be more than happy to hear it. But as of right now, this is just my guess. That R Pirre right there, just based on the converter. But that's what we got. So thanks for watching. Any information, leave it in the comments. And I hope to see you again soon. Bye.